Hi Stampers, it's Linda Schmidt with Stampin' with the Hounds. Today I have another fun fold featuring the Lighthouse Point bundle. Now this has been in the annual catalog since last spring, and it's one that when the catalog first came out I'm like, oh, I really like that, but then I never got around to buying it. And then when Stampin' Up had their catalog sale last month, I took advantage of it and I purchased it, as well as the 3D into the Clouds embossing folder, which is kind of fun. It kind of coordinates with it. And then this is the Lighthouse Point set. So it has some great sentiments in there, and then your lighthouse, as well as some kind of shapes to make rocks, your water, your kind of sky. And then the dies are wonderful. So they do one that is like the big just lighthouse itself, and then this one cuts out the stamp set. And then there's all these other pieces that can help you build, make your lights for sentiments, the little rail for the lighthouse kind of at the top there. So lots of fun things. And I just spent a day basically die cutting. And so I put stuff, like I assembled a bunch of them ready to go. And then I just have a bunch of all the pieces set aside in little baggies. And then I die cut a bunch of the shapes and stuff and threw them in a bowl. So this way it's easier to, when you go and want to make a card, you've got all the kind of die pieces done. So I do that a lot for many of my die sets on there. So we're going to be doing a fold that is called the Z-fold slit card. So the Z-folds, I do a lot of these, and this one, so it's the same concept. You're making that Z, but you're putting in that slit so that you've got a little bit of a 3D effect, and then the card stands up really nice, and then you can create, you know, your own little pop-up things and stuff when people open it up. And then what I've been doing, so there's several different ways to make this. This one, I'm doing it with what I call the designer series paper, is the actual Z-fold itself. And then that is just attached to a quarter sheet of cardstock. And then this way I can stamp whatever my sentiment is on the back of it. So this, I'm going to show you how to do it this way. This is the one I would say is the easiest way to do this fold. And then again, it's a great way of using up your designer series paper, which this one is the pretty print. So there's like this coastal cabana, shaded spruce kind of soft sea foam combo, and then there is like a coral, and then there's like a raspberry and evening evergreen in that pack. So that's what I kind of used on this one. This one, when the Waves of Ocean designer series paper was in the clearance rack, I was like, oh, I can crank out my cards and start, you know, doing a video with the Waves of Ocean because it was in the clearance rack. Well, of course, now it's all sold out, but I did make a bunch with that Waves of Ocean designer series paper because it's so pretty. And so this is another one where the designer series paper is that Z-fold, and then I kind of did my little scenery with the lighthouse, and then again I've got that quarter sheet on the back that I did for that one. And then this one is the second way of doing it. Now this time my cardstock is the Z-fold, and then I've got two designer series paper patterns as a quarter sheet basically layered on top. So this is the other way that I'm going to show you how to do. But again, I'm kind of building that little scene, and then I'm using the Deckle rectangle dies, which I just got, and then that cloud embossing folder. So that one's kind of fun. So when you do the cardstock base, now you see your back end is a little different. So if you don't, if you want to leave some space for writing your sentiment, then I would just take and put some white paper, you know, just measure it and put it on the back and just have it be on that top part. So that's another way of doing it. And then here's another one. So this one, instead of doing the two different patterns, like I had two different patterns of designer series paper, this one I did the same. So, but again, it's going to be that quarter sheet, And then the base is the card. So you can see on this one how I decorated the back, cutting that white paper, and then I continued my scene with the lighthouse, and then I built some rocks with the best border dies, and then the splatter embossing folder. So lots of different ways to do this. And then one more way that I did, and this one, again, the cardstock is the base, but now I was basically doing pieces. So I was kind of measuring each of these panels with my paper or my cardstock to build my scenery. So that's another way of doing it. And on this one, it's still the same measurement for the base, and then you're just measuring all these different ones. So I will put these measurements for each of the little DSPs and the cardstocks down in the description below. But there's a real quick cheat sheet, and that's just a way for doing it with the different pieces, like a puzzle almost. All right, so we're going to do one that is the cardstock base with the 2 different designer series paper, and then we're going to do one with the designer series paper as our Z-fold. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Let me get all my pieces. Yeah, I've been meaning to do this video for a while, but we've had, well, you know, of course, Stampin' with the Hounds. I have greyhounds, and we had 4. 2 of them passed away this year, and our other 2 are 10 and 8. And Ezra gave us a little bit of a scare yesterday. But thank goodness she's okay. But yeah, they thought she had pulmonary. She's got an enlarged heart, and so she has a heart murmur. But they were concerned. They saw some things on her x-ray, and they were thinking that it was cancer. But luckily, after we had the x-rays done and the radiologist looked at it, it's not cancer. It was benign. So thank goodness. So I was a little out of sorts yesterday. So that's why this video has been kind of delayed. Okay, so this one is going to be the designer series paper as I'm trying to get my little cheat sheets here, as the Z-fold. So your designer series paper needs to be 5 1/4 by 8. And then because I want my Z-fold, you know, pulling out this way, we're going to score at 6 and 4 on that. You can flip it over, you know, and do 1 and 2, whatever, but I just wanted to make sure when I was doing this that my pattern was going to follow correctly, because I have done it where it's upside down. I mean, this one doesn't really matter, but sometimes with your pattern paper, if you don't pay attention, you can have your Z-fold be upside down. So, okay, then so this is going to then be attached onto a 1/4 sheet of cardstock. So this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then this is going to be layered on the back. So this is just a 1/4 inch smaller. So this is 4 by 5 1/4. Forgot to mark this one. And that's just to layer, to build my scene on the back is what that's for. All right, so that's all. And then whatever pieces you want for your lighthouse and the embellishments and stuff, you'll need scrap paper for that. For these, I had die cut using the rectangle, deckled rectangle dies. So these are kind of fun. So I had used, for this one, I think it was like the third and fourth. Yeah, these are the 2 that I used on there. So 3rd and 4th largest from there. And then this little one, so the 3rd smallest, this one fits perfectly into here if you wanted to do that as well. So that's another way you can use those rectangle dies. Okay, so let's do our folding first. We'll put our little embellishments away here. Okay, so like I said, we're going to take our base so we are going to score this at 4 and 6 because I want this to open this way. So make sure this one's got a stripe. I'm just kind of watching my stripes on it. So we're going to score at 4 and at 6. And then you're just going to fold this in half. And then fold it back. And now you've got that Z-fold. Okay. Now what we want to do, we want to make that slit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this in half. Okay. So it's just folded in half. I'm going to turn my scored side so that it's up against my paper trimmer, and I'm going to line it up at 2. And then what you want to do is on your paper trimmer, you can see, I'll kind of zoom in here a little bit. On your paper trimmer, you're going to have a ruler, okay? So we're going to go down, so we're putting it in at 2, and then we're going to cut down to 2. You can also, depending on your pattern paper, you would be able to see that score line, but mine, because it's right on that border, it's really hard to see. So I'm going to use my paper trimmer as my guide, and then that way I'm going to stop at the 2-inch mark. Okay. And there's also on your paper trimmer, there's always like a little line. That's where your cutting blade is. So that's where I'm going to stop when I get down to that 2. Okay, so we're at 2 and we're cutting down to 2, or right to that score line. Okay, so now I've got that slit. Now we want to, so this is a little bit easier to fold. We're going to add another score line here, and I'm going to flip this over, and I'm basically going to score at 2 inches, and I'm going to stop right at that cut line. So I'm just going to go 2 and stop at the cut line. And that is it for the cutting and scoring. So now you can bring this out. Okay, so we're going to bring this and keep it folded, just kind of folding on those score lines. And now you've got your Z-fold and then that little slit in there. So this gets to be a little flimsy sometimes, but that's where I like to use and build up my, either with my saying, you know, or the lighthouse, just to give it a little bit of stability on that band arm. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and flip this over, and I want to use my cardstock back, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. It's just a 1/4 sheet of cardstock, and we're just going to tape this onto the back. So I'm only putting, so this is my front. I'm going to flip it over. This is my back, and I'm only putting adhesive here, okay? And then this is going to go on that 1/4 sheet of cardstock. And I'm using Smoky Slate for my cardstock. And then this is the Pretty Prints Designer Series paper. So it's all this navy and Pacific Point pattern paper with splatter, stripes, kind of some like dandelions and that kind of thing. But I thought this kind of looked like waves and stuff like that. So like a good water scene. Okay, so that's now I got my Z-fold. Now we're just going to start to embellish. So For this one, I'm going to use those Deckled rectangle dies to give me my stability for my front of my card. So what I like to do on these clouds, just to pop them out a little bit more, I like to use my white craft pad and my sponge, or my sponge dauber, and I'm just going to lightly burnish over where the clouds are, just to make these pop a little bit more. So just a light swirling motion. And this is craft ink, so it does take a few minutes to dry if you don't heat set it with your heat tool. So I'm just going to real quick dry this. And then wipe up any excess ink so you don't get it on your other cards. Okay, and then this is going to be attached then onto my other larger sized deckled rectangle. So this is just basic white. So Pacific Point onto basic white. Now, you want to only add adhesive onto this part. So when you flip it over, you're only putting adhesive here. And then I just kind of like to center this somewhat onto the card. Okay, so now I've got my little bit of stability, kind of helps with that bottom flap. And then for here, I had cut out one with a smoky slate, so then that kind of fits right in there. So I am going to leave that for now because I think I want to stamp on it first. And then my lighthouse, so this one I've already assembled it. So basically what I did is I took the solid die, this one, I cut that out in Daffodil Delight. The outline I did in Smoky Slate, which is this one. Then I cut out, this is the other piece. I cut that out with the brush gold and I just layered that right on top of these two pieces. So you're going to have a little bit of layering on that top part because you're building up, you've got 3 layers of cardstock. And then the little gate railway, that one is this little piece, and I did that in just black. And then when I cut out, because I had die cut a bunch of these, when I cut this one out with the Daffodil Delight, I kept these little pieces that pop out, and I glued those in there. So when you're die cutting, just kind of keep all those little pieces so that you can use them to like build your puzzle together. So then that's all assembled. And on this one, I think what I was going to do, I was going to do more of this kind of coming out. And so I think I'm going to make this one, what do I have for sayings? Let's see if this will fit on here. The problem is I just have to make sure that it fits on my card. So yeah, that one's not going to work. So I'm going to do, I think I'll just do a thank you card because you can always use thank you. All right, and that one, I'm going to do it in, let's see here. I think I'll just do this in navy because that'll pop on this. So when you're stamping this, you want to make sure that your saying isn't going to get covered up. So I like to kind of place my lighthouse, just help me with my positioning. All right, so there's that. then I'm just going to use some dimensionals on these. Because I think when I put this in here, yeah. So we'll just hold this down with some dimensionals. And then I'm only going to put adhesive right to here because this other, this part is going to be showing on my card. So I don't want it sticking to the back end like that. So there's no adhesive right here. And then we'll go ahead and pop this on. So really with this set, if you, like I said, if you just go ahead and die cut and assemble all of your lighthouses, you know, at one time, that way when you go to make a card, you've got the pieces and it just makes it a lot faster to it. Okay. And then I'm not going to, I think on this one, maybe I will do so much thanks. I think I'll just do my little lighthouse. I'll just stamp one on here. And then if I want to do some other embellishments, I could do one of my sailboats too. Let me see here. And again, I'm going to, I had done my sailboats, punched them out, bazillion pieces here, and threw them in a baggie just to kind of help. Let's see, will that fit? No, it's going to be too wide. Okay. Save that for something else. So for now, I'm just going to stamp another Pacific Point. We'll just stamp a lighthouse in the background here. And then that'll just get attached right inside here. And if I wanted to put a sentiment on there, I can. But I do have my back to use. And so this one is that 4x5 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and build my scene like I had done on this one. So we're going to do... I got so many things back here. Let's see. I'm looking for gray granite. This is where I need a bigger desk sometimes. So I'm going to do, this is my sky. Cliffs. So my cliffs I'm going to do first in, clean this so I didn't get it on. I'm going to do my cliff in gray granite. I'm just going to stamp that closer to the bottom. And then I'll do my sky in Pool Party. So I'm just going to stamp 2 of these. this has got this little ground. So I'm going to do this in soft suede. And my lighthouse I will do in Pacific Point. And this stamp set is one of those like distinctive ones, so it's not going to be a completely solid image. It's kind of got a little bit of that shading to it, which makes it really fun. And then I'm going to do for my two-step part is my Night of Navy, which is, oh, there it is. So when you do this one, you're going to line up this line to this top part of the lighthouse. And then that way you've got your stripes. Okay, so that was the navy. And then I want to do for my beacon of light, I'm going to do Daffodil Delight. It's a little bit brighter. There's that. And then that soft suede, I'm doing that little kind of this mountain or row of dirt, I guess I should say, or a rock. It could be that too. And I'm just going to do a few of these just to give it some dimension. And then I like to just take my Daffodil Delight Stampin' Right marker, and then I just kind of fill in my top part of my little lighthouse to continue that light beam. And then this is going to be attached then to the back of the card. And I got a little bit of muckety muck from my ink pad, so I just use my little sand eraser just to get rid of that. Okay, so that is for that one, and I'm going to add just one more thing before I forget, because I do like to always add a little bit of bling. We're going to do, and these are left over from the mini catalog. These are from the gnome storybook gnomes, but I'm just trying to use them up. So, and they coordinate. They got a little bit of that Pacific Point kind of coordination in there. All right, so there's that one with the Designer Series paper as your base. And then you can also, oh, before I forget, I was going to do this too. I like to layer these little die cuts together just to give them a little bit of strength. And then I'm going to do my outline again. And I'm just going to stamp this onto the die cut. So that's another way of doing it. You don't have to use the full stamp. You can just use this little accent piece. And then that way this can then just be attached. And I'm just, all I need to do is, I'm just going to use a dimensional just to hold it. And then you just kind of tuck it where you want it. And then that way it just gives you a little bit of that kind of continuing the scene on there. So that is the DSP. And again, you can write your messaging on the back. So then the other one that we're going to do these away here, is where we do the cardstock as the base for your Z-fold. All right. So let's get this away. All right, so many cards. Okay, so this one, so our cardstock is going to be our base, so it's that same dimension. This one's a little bit different for the scoring on it. And then with the paper, I got that. This is for the back, and then these are all my extra pieces that I'm going to need. Okay. So again, your cardstock for this one is going to be 5.5 by 8.5. We're then going to score at 2 1/8 and 4 1/4 on the long side. 2 1/8 and then 4 1/4. So again, kind of folding that in half, and then this one comes back. So now there's our Z-fold, but we want to make our cuts. So again, when we cut, I need to check one thing before I do this. I need to find my... Oh, here it is. Okay. That was for this one. I need the other one. There it is. My little cheat sheet that I made. So, oh yeah, this is the one I need. Yeah, 4 1/4 and 2 1/8. That's what I did. And then we're closing it, and it's 2 1/8. Okay. So now what we want to do is, so this is my little cheat sheet. Okay. So we scored at 4 1/4 and 2 1/8. We're then going to fold it in half, rotate it so that the fold line is up against my paper cutter, and instead of lining up at 2, we're going to line up at 2 1/8 instead, and then we're going to cut down to that score line. Okay, so I folded this in half. You want the score side so you can see it. This is my crease, so that's going to go up against my paper trimmer. I'm going to line it up at 2 1/8. And we're cutting down to the score line. So again, I'm going to watch my paper cutter, and on where that line is where I'm stopping on the score line. So now I've made my slit. Now we want to make the score. So I'm going to flip this over. And again, we're going to do 2 1/8, and we're going to score down to this cut line. And then that's it for cutting and scoring. And then we'll flip it back over. Now we're going to pop this up. We're going to bring this down, and then use our bone folder and just fold on all of our score lines. So now we have the base on there. Okay. And I forgot to do this. Oh, shoot. Okay, so that's right. On this one, I totally blanked. What you needed to do first was attach these onto this before we did our cutting, because that way you're cutting through both the cardstock and the DSP. So now I'm just going to basically recut again. But on this one, when you're doing it, so these are going to be, and there's two quantity. These are going to be 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Okay. So rewind, pretend this isn't cut or folded. You're just going to put, I'm just putting adhesive in each of the 4 corners and a little bit at the top. And I can do a little bit on this side. Because you remember we're going to be cutting this, so you don't want to have to cut with it. So I'm just going to attach this on here. So it's a really, really narrow border. And then same thing here, we're just going to put adhesive on basically this top part and this little bottom, so kind of making an L. Let's see, a little bit there. Put a little bit here. Okay. So pretend things aren't already scored and folded. All right. So now what we would do, going back, we would do our scores at the 2 1/8. I'm just going to flip this over. See, so this will need to score. We're going to do it at the 2 1/8 and the 4 1/4, which is already done. So I really don't need to do that one. So that's 4 1/4. That one's done. And then we would fold it over, flip it so that the fold is at the top of our paper cutter. We're going to line it up at 2 1/8 and we're going to cut down to the score line. So now I'm kind of cutting through cardstock and the DSP. So now that is cut and it's attached. And then we want to make this a little bit easier to fold. So we're going to flip this over. And again, at that 2 1/8, you're going to score down to the cut line. And you're going through that cardstock and DSP, so I kind of run it over a few times. Okay, so now this will fold over. So just very important when you do it with the cardstock as your base, glue your DSP down before you do the cutting and scoring. Otherwise, like how I did it, it works just as well to kind of fix it. So, and then if you've got pieces that need a little bit more adhesive, this is where you can just add some either glue dots, or if you can lift it up with your finger, you can kind of pop some adhesive down there. But I think everything else is held down pretty well. Okay, so now that is my cardstock Z-fold with the 2 different pattern papers with it. So then this one, I have assembled. I've already die cut my pieces here just to save on time. But now here's where I'm going to show you how I assemble my lighthouse. And for this, I do like to use the liquid glue when I'm assembling all of this. So I have done Pacific Point as the solid one. I have Smoky Slate as my outlines. I'm going to go ahead and put glue on the back of my Smoky Slate. And before I forget, I just realized it's because I wanted to show you, I like to sometimes emboss the solid shape. So before I put that on, we are going to use I've done the stripes or the splatter, either one. for this. And I think on this one, I think I'll just do the stripes on here. So I'm going to put this in my stripes, and I'm kind of putting it in at an angle. So now it's in my stripes embossing folder. And we're going to use our little Stampin' Cup machine. Okay, so we've got the base, our folder, and then since this is a 3D folder, we need our plate number 4. And when I'm using these, I usually kind of offset my plates a little bit to help it guide through the machine a little bit better. So now our base has that kind of fun texture piece to it. So now I can go ahead and glue this on top of it, and it just kind of gives it a little bit more depth to the die cut. Okay. Now, remember I had said when you're die cutting the top piece, this is where I like to keep these little pieces that pop out so that I can use those to do my lights for the top of my lighthouse. So I'm going to very carefully pop these out and not lose them. And this is the glitter ombre paper that is in the clearance rack right now. This is that Daffodil Delight. So I'm going to keep this for another project. I also die cut another top piece, and this is with the foil. I just had a scrap of this blue foil paper that was left over from a couple years ago. So I'm going to pop out those pieces again. And these I'll just keep for another project. I'm not going to use them on this one. Come on, pop out. Oh yeah, I made this one a sticker. That's why I'm like, why is this so sticky? This one's got, I had run it through an adhesive sheet, so I made this into a sticker, which sometimes makes it easier when you're assembling. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on the inside here, and this is where having some tweezers comes in handy. And I think I might have just lost that little yellow piece. I did. So we're just going to do the blue. Since I lost that yellow piece, I don't know where it went. And then so this is a little bit like playing Operation. And this is optional. I mean, you don't have to do what I call the puzzle piecing, but I just think sometimes this adds a little bit more to your die cuts. I find it relaxing. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and put this on top. Actually, since I did... No, this is fine. I'll just have the blue. Blue. Since I've already peeled off the sticker. Okay, and then my rail, which I'm trying to think if I made this one a sticker. I think I might have. Yeah, I did. Yeah, those adhesive sheets come in handy, especially with these little dies, to make things a sticker. And then I like to take, and these are on the clearance rack right now. This is kind of like a little diamond, but there's diamond teardrops and circles, and they come in the silver as well as a clear. I think there's like they're like $2 or $3 now. So stock up on those gems in the clearance rack. Okay, so there's that. And then now we're going to go back to my card. Let's see what my game plan here is. So I had already, and this is that ombre glitter again. I had used a stitch circle die to cut it out. I think on this one, I'm going to do that. And then I could do this. I think on this one, I do want to put my little sailboat. So I'm going to show you. So I've already got mine how I want them, but I'm going to show you a real quick tip on how to use the sailboat punch and the stamp set, if I can find it. Oh yeah, here it is. So I borrowed this stamp set from my mother when I was home at Thanksgiving. So this is at Let's Sail Away. And it comes with a coordinating punch. That is here. So I'm going to show you how to make your punch tape template. So you want to first just take a piece of scratch paper. You're going to put it in and just punch it out. Okay, and this just becomes your template. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the stamps and I'm going to line them up in this template. Move these so I don't lose them. So I have another piece of paper that I'm going to be stamping on. But I'm going to use this template to line up my stamps. So I'm turning them upside down and I'm lining them up in the die cut pieces. So I just make sure that they're all in there. And then I'm going to take a block and I'm just going to pick up the stamps. So now I have them positioned correctly. Then on my paper, so I would do this for each color. So I would stamp it 3 times. But I'm just only going to do it the once because I've already got my pieces already punched and ready to use. So these will just go in my stockpile. So now when you go to stamp it on your paper, remember that you're bringing in the punch so that you want this lined up so that you're stamping and punching the right way. Okay, so knowing that my punch, the sailboat, needs to be on the bottom, I'm going to stamp it on my paper this way. So now when I bring in my punch, everything is lined up. And I'm just kind of tilting it so I can kind of see what I'm doing here. So that all looks good. Maybe have I just shifted it a little bit? Okay, so now they're all lined up. Punch. And now you've got your stamped pieces ready to go. So then I would clean my stamp, re-ink it, and I would do the brown. Clean it, re-ink it, and then do like my yellow or whatever color you want. So that when you get done, you've got like, I had this whole baggie full of sailboat pieces that I then use and keep for future projects. But then you've got your template that you can always use to line up those, and then I just kind of kept it so I wouldn't lose it, to line up your stamps. So that's just a real quick tip to use on that. Like I said, I had die cut mine, punched them out several times. So I've got some Mango Melody, I've got my soft suede, and now I'm just going to attach this to my card. I'm just going to put it right down here. I think this will, I'll shift it over just a little bit so that my sails aren't being, here we go. Yeah, I cut my finger. I was making scones the other day, and I was zesting my lemon and zested my thumb while I was at it. So this Band-Aid is like in the way. All right, so there's my little sailboat. And then, so this one, let me get my pieces again. That. Oops, I just lost my gem. There we go. We're just going to add a little bit of tape to the half of this. And put that on the card. And then again, I just like to use dimensionals to pop this up. Plus, when it's going against that glitter paper, sometimes the dimensionals hold better than your other adhesive. And then we'll just attach that on to the front. And then this, I'll just put a little bit of glue on it. Kind of hold it in place. Yeah, I may not like that glitter. I probably should have done my sticky strip. All right. And here, let's see. I think on this one, I had cut, or did I use, I might have used the wrong piece. I don't see it here. So yeah, that piece, what is the size here? Oh, here it is. This is for the back of the card. So this one is going to be 4 by 3 1/8. And that is what's going to attach right back here. So for now, I am just going to, well, there we go. I'm going to keep this just plain for now, just to save on some time. And then I will add, just because I like to have my little lighthouse there, I'm going to actually stamp my stripes in the white so that they pop out. And then it kind of coordinates with that striped paper. Real quick dry. And then we'll just use a little dimensional. Just to pop this. Let's see. Like so. So then you've got your little scenery built. And I'm just going to leave this one blank because I'm not quite sure what I want to do for my sayings. So there you go. That is the 2 different ways to make your Z-fold slit card. Like I said, you're either using ones with the designer series paper, if I can find them. Oh, you guys should see my desk. It's a disaster zone. Here we go. As your Z-fold, so designer series paper as a Z-fold, or your cardstock as your Z-fold. So thanks again for watching. I know it's a little bit longer video, but stay tuned. I do have some other ones that I'm going to be working on because I do start to be, I will be on vacation, the holiday vacation next week. So I'll be in the craft room getting caught up with showing you some new items from the upcoming 2023 mini catalog and celebration that starts next month. So thanks again for watching. Thanks for the support, and have a great and creative day. Bye-bye.